The Wallace Center, a business unit of Winrock International, is the host of the NGFN webinar series. The Wallace Center has been a leading organization in the movement for a more sustainable and equitable food system for over 25 years. Today, the center supports entrepreneurs and communities as they build a new 21st century food system that is healthier for people, the environment, and the economy. The center serves the growing community of civic, business, and philanthropic organizations involved in building a new good food system in the United States. In particular, we're focused on advancing regional collaborative efforts around the country to move good food, healthy, green, fair, affordable food beyond the direct marketing realm into larger scale wholesale channels. The National Good Food Network, or NGFN, is an initiative of the Wallace Center. It is structured as a network of networks, ensuring efficient flow of information and innovation from boots-on-the-ground projects to the national level and back down to the grassroots level across the nation. The Wallace Center coordinates and supports the network. Our goals are to work with the growers to ensure that there is abundant supply of good food to meet the high consumer demand for the product, to collect and disseminate the best models, stories, methods, and outcomes, and to ensure that policymakers are informed about the wonderful successes our network and partners have had, so that we can continue to increase support for regional healthy food. You can learn more about the great work of the National Good Food Network on our website, ngfn.org. We have a library of fantastic resources for scaling up good food. Especially of a note is our section on food hubs. You can get there by typing foodhub.info into your browser. We also archive all of our webinars there. Please feel free to contact us. Our email address is memorable. It's contact@ngfn.org. So let's jump into our program. Let me introduce Tom. Tom Peterson is the Agricultural Educational Coordinator for Appalachian Sustainable Development, ASD, a regional not-for-profit organization that seeks to strengthen and diversify the rural economy in Southwest Virginia and East Tennessee. He works to support the Appalachian Harvest Network, a group of over 60 organic farmers in the area who collectively sell fresh produce to supermarkets throughout the Southeast U.S. He also supports regional farmers markets and others interested in sustainable agriculture through developing workshops and farm tours and offering personal farm consultations. Tom is a founding member and coordinator of the Appalachian Farmers Market Association. Tom has a BA in geology from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. He and his wife Denise and their boys Caleb and Mason, 16-year-old twins, also farm a 1-acre market garden called the Blue Door Garden, growing cut flowers, vegetables, and herbs for the Abington Farmers Market, local restaurants, and CSA subscriptions in Kingsport, Tennessee, and Bristol, Virginia. Tom?
That's great. Thank you, Jeff. So my presentation is going to focus on our work with Appalachian Harvest, which is a wholesale network. Started off as certified organic family farmers, although we do move a fair amount of conventional produce now as well. Appalachian Harvest has been a work in progress for about 15 years, still very much a work in progress, but I want to I feel like I need to give just a little bit of a background before I go into the kind of the theme or the subject of this webinar. I'll try to be brief. And the title of the webinar, the subtitle is Reducing Financial Risk Through Food Hubs. The primary goal of Appalachian Harvest was really to create financial opportunity through food hubs for Appalachian farmers. Again, we're working in Southwest Virginia, East Tennessee, very much a primarily rural area, relatively few people spread out over a fairly large area, high rates of poverty throughout the region, and the tillable land here is rare and it's spread out as well, kind of concentrated in valley areas and in river areas. Our strategy through Appalachian Harvest has always been to access the high-paying, more urban markets, within a 500-mile radius of where we are located, with local and certified organic products. So it's been an interesting and very eventful journey, but the key elements to what we're doing are, let's see if I can get this slide to advance. There we go. The key elements are first of all, creating an infrastructure that allows for the aggregation of produce and the distribution of produce, and that includes a warehouse, coolers, trucks, grading equipment, etc., all those elements that go into that of aggregating and distributing produce. And what it does, it allows these smaller scale Appalachian farmers to access markets that are traditionally open only to larger scale producers, markets such as supermarkets, produce brokers, things of that nature. So the inside of this structure is, what you would expect. A lot of people, a lot of boxes, a lot of produce grading lines moving around, the truck docks in the back. And so it's a fairly large-scale operation that is serving the needs of fairly small-scale growers throughout the region. The other aspect of what we do, and I think is important before we get into the thing of what we're talking about, and here I've just got kind of the basic elements of the food hub. Location, which I've addressed a little bit. The production element is what I want to address just real quickly. But marketing, infrastructure, management, all of these are important elements, and all of them have to be addressed in terms of a successful food hub. But the other part that I want to talk about is production support. And so these are Appalachian farmers, many of whom grew up in a tobacco growing situation or raising primarily cattle. And so that information provided to these growers, one-on-one technical support, workshops, farm tours, and help with the organic and more recently the good agricultural practices, certifications, all of these things are essential elements of what we're doing. What we're concentrating on today for the webinar part of it is that number 5 on this list, the management of it, avoiding gluts and meeting the needs of buyers, both to ensure better pricing for the growers and to keep our buyers happy so that they continue to be buyers in the future. So what I want to start with in terms of that, in terms of how we make this happen, is the management part of this. So growers need to have access to the knowledge, tools, materials they need to succeed. So we're talking about certified organic production for a lot of these growers. It's a brand new idea. For many of them, growing produce is a brand new idea. So that's really important. But then they also need to work cooperatively in order to meet the needs of the buyers over as long a season as possible. And this can be a real challenge with Appalachian, with all farmers, I'm sure, tend to be an independent breed. And so cooperative work is something that really takes a lot of management. So active coordination in planting dates, active coordination of the specific varieties that people are growing, and trying to manage it all so the expected harvest dates and amounts meet the needs of the growers. And the growers have to have buy-in to these schedules to avoid the gluts, which for the growers' part tends to reduce the price or the return that they're getting on their produce. So it starts off with collecting the information from our buyers. What are they looking for? What is their demand? And I'll just quickly go through this sheet. If you look on the left-hand side, a list of the major crops that we offer through Appalachian Harvest. The size column refers to the box size that we're shipping of whatever that individual process is, or product is. And then across the top there you'll see a list of several of our primary buyers. And our marketer works with these buyers, goes and visits them, talks to them on the phone, over email, and very early in the season, before the new year, probably in November and December, is getting commitments from these buyers for how many of those boxes, for example, red slicers tomatoes, how many 20-pound boxes on a weekly basis would these buyers be willing to commit to Appalachian Harvest. And we add those up across to that totals line that gives us the total weekly demand. That's what we're shooting to meet for each of those products. The next column over is a figure that is a really tough one to get a firm handle on, but that's the yield per acre per week of those crops. So if you've got an acre of red slicer tomatoes, then we're saying that we can generally count on a yield of 275 boxes a week off of that acre of red slicer tomatoes. And then, using that number plus the totals, we can, and the number of plantings or selling weeks of a certain product, we can come up with a total acreage that we need for each of those crops, giving us a ballpark of what we're shooting for to meet the demand of those growers. So if you look down at the very far right-hand corner, that's 71.65 acres. This was back in, these are 2006 numbers that we were working with. If I were a 75-acre vegetable grower, I would have the beginnings of a farm plan. This would be, I would use these numbers to figure out my planting schedule, and I could do that all myself and figure it out, and that would be great. But that's not the way we're approaching it. The way we're approaching it is trying to meet this demand with anywhere from 20 to 60 individual farmers, depending on how many people are involved in any given year. So we need to find as simple as a process as possible to try to meet these numbers, this demand, with the number of growers that we've got signed or committed to growing for Appalachian Harvest. And the way we start that is with a big meeting, getting as many of these growers as we can in a room, which can be a challenge in itself, and just with pieces of paper around the wall, you can see, if you can read the screen on there, Roma tomatoes, red grape tomatoes, red tomatoes. So there's 2 planting dates for all those tomatoes. Green peppers has 2 different planting dates. And then individual growers who are in that room start to bid. Bob Orr will say, I'll grow 12,000 green peppers starting in May. Preston Ball is committed to 500 red tomatoes starting in May. And we start to fill in that gap. We know what we need for each of those sections if you look at the bottom of that sheet, and we start to fill in those holes. And that is the beginning of the process. And of course, we don't get all of the growers in one room at one time, and all of the growers that are in that room don't know for sure what they're ready to commit to grow. So this gives us a starting point. We take that information and we enter it into a simple spreadsheet. Now, this is just kind of a small piece of this spreadsheet. If you look across the top, there's several crops: Roma tomatoes, Carmen peppers, which is a red Italian roasting type pepper. Green peppers would be the Peps and the Pep 2, and eggplants, egg and egg 2. So this is a small part of it. The different growers are down along the left-hand side of the column, and the bids that we got from that meeting would be placed into this spreadsheet. And at the bottom, the very bottom, is our target number. So if we look at peppers, green peppers, and we look at the PEP column, for the May planting, our target is 12,000 plants to meet our demand for this given year. And by the numbers that have been entered in the column above it, we've got a commitment of 16,000 for that May planting. So if in a perfect world, we would be set. We'd be a little over. We'd have a little bit more than we need, and that would be great, although it's not a perfect world, and we know that not everyone is going to have a perfect season with any given crop. And so a little bit of overage, a little bit of extra in any of these categories gives us that wiggle room to make sure that we've got, that we can feel confident that we're going to be able to meet that demand. In the Roma tomatoes, we've got a target number of 7,500 plants per planting, a May planting and a June planting. And at this point of this spreadsheet, we would be about 5,000 plants short of either of those. And so that leads into the next step of this whole process, in which we start tracking down our growers, or we start recruiting new growers, and we try to start filling in these gaps. And as these gaps fill in, then the opportunities for growers, as we continue to move forward, we can steer growers to certain places. And here's another little section of that spreadsheet with cucumbers. We're doing 4 plantings of cucumbers. One that's an April planting and protected hoop house kind of situation, a May planting, a June planting, and a July planting. Again, trying to spread that harvest over as long a season as possible. And same with zucchini, but if we look at the cucumber numbers, we've got that April planting, we're about 2,500 plants short. Now that would not be an example of something we would really actively try to recruit more growers to fill, because that demands a hoop house, it demands a special situation. But for the May planting, we're still about 2,500 plants short. For the June planting, about 1,000 plants short. And then again, about 2,000 plants short for the July planting. So we've got plenty of room to fill this in, and if I were working with a grower, I would probably encourage a new grower. If I were working, let's say, with Sam Gingrich, and he wanted to grow cucumbers, I would encourage him to fill in that May planting, to try to get that early planting, that first major outdoor planting, filled up so that we feel good about that, and then we can continue to fill those gaps as we go along. This is another view of a different year's sheet that we're tracking the grower. This is peas, sugar snap peas, green cabbage, red cabbage, and lettuce, some of the crops. But just different ways that we've organized at the bottom. This bottom column, the percentage being what percentage of our target number have we reached. And so anything that's over 100 means that we've pretty much filled that one, and we need to go and try to fill in these slots that have a lesser number. And it's a process that continues well into the spring. Oftentimes actually it's rare that we get our full demand numbers met. We're always actively recruiting growers, trying to fill as many of these gaps, as many of these holes as we can. But it gives us a framework to work with, and then we can use this information to track growers over the course of the season. So if I know that Gary Van Cott is supposed to plant 2,000 green cabbages on the 15th of March, I can call him in March and say, Gary, did you get your plants out? And he can say, yes, I did. And I say, great, we can lock that in. Or he can say, no, I had problems in the greenhouse, or rats ate my cabbages, whatever. I can know that that's going to happen, and I can spread that information to our marketer, and then she can share it with the buyers. I mean, the buyers don't like not getting what they've requested, but what they like even less is not getting what they requested on short notice. And so if we can let them know in as much advance time as possible that we're not going to be able to meet their needs for, say, red cabbage, then they've got time to find that cabbage from another source, and it retains our good standing with that relationship with the buyer. And what this allows us to do is to plan our production so that the growers are getting the maximum dollar for their product, and it allows us to meet the needs of the buyers over time, and they are happier. And trying to avoid that whole idea of gluts, of everyone planting their zucchini in May as soon as the weather is nice, and then having to deal with this huge pile of zucchini in the greenhouse or in the packing house that we have to move in a kind of rushed situation at a very low price, and that doesn't really serve anybody's needs very well. So that is kind of in a nutshell, as quickly as I could spit it out, kind of how our process works.
All right, fantastic. Is Tamara there?
Tamara is here. Use that phone.
All right, excellent.
And what I'll do is I'll turn this over to Tamara McNaughton, who's one of our newer growers, and she's of T&T Produce in Meadowview, Virginia. And she is, we're trying to figure out the phone situation here. I'm going to pass my phone to her and let her explain her role in this whole thing. Thanks. There you go.
Thank you, Tom. I started growing for Appalachian Harvest in February of this year, or last year. We just made the decision to start an acre garden that my partner and boyfriend Tony his family had grown in the past. He is an old tobacco grower, and I've been kind of in and out of growing for years myself. So when we got together and made the decision in February to grow, this greenhouse was an old tobacco house that had absolutely no plastic over it and still had the float beds in the ground from when his family had grown tobacco. We quickly cleaned out. There was also trees growing above the bows of this house, so we had a lot of cleaning up to do in preparation for seeding. And also while we were preparing, we got in touch with Appalachian Harvest, because as we were talking, and the talk involved a lot of different angles. Where we're going to grow conventional, organic. Tony's family is a conventional grower, and so we discussed that. We got in touch with Appalachian Harvest, and a question of pricing came up as far as if we're going to grow conventional or organic. So Appalachian Harvest, Robin Robbins, was able to provide us with a price comparison from past years that we could look at, and it helped us make our decision as to which direction we were going to go, certified, organic, or conventional. And the price comparison definitely swayed us in the direction of certified organic. So then, you know, while we're seeding and cleaning and preparing, and Tony's out plowing, I was doing paperwork, which I think a lot of growers maybe consider this a stumbling block in the process of becoming certified organic. And Tom was helpful with that. He came out and visited me in this greenhouse, and we pulled out the laptop and tried to go through those papers. And also we learned that we would need to be GAP certified. So Appalachian Harvest hosted a GAP workshop for us, and a man named With, and he's an extension agent, I think, in Wythe County. His name is With, and he's in Wythe County, Virginia. He put together a very helpful notebook that got our GAP certification, all questions answered, so that we were prepared for that inspection. Another extension agent, Scott Jarrell, came out and went through a pre-inspection with me, which helped set my heart at ease about that process. So while we're plant seeding and transplanting, there's a lot of paperwork to be done, which I do realize that it is kind of a stumbling block, but we had made this decision to grow this garden, and what we were kind of saying to ourselves and to other people was, we're doing this, and we just made the decision. We realized that we're going to have to jump through whatever hoops we need to jump through. So we got our Tony's family helped us do all of the transplanting, and then we got these plants up, and we started to, I guess, in the beginning of June, we planted them out. GAP certification, I see there's a question. Okay, somebody's answered it. We started planting out these plants. You can see in the background of this picture here that we were also blessed to have another extension agent who is an old friend of Tony's to help us source this plastic. His name is Alan Straw. He's the area specialist of small fruits and I think vegetables. He helped us source our plastic and our drip tape. He helped us zone out our irrigation system. He actually helped lay the plastic for us as well. This was my first year growing on plastic, and it is, I think, an amazing thing for growing on an acre scale, which is small to some, but it was large to me. I was used to growing half this much in a more intensive style planting. We also borrowed this planter from Allen, Virginia Tech as well. This was very helpful. And then you see this hand of a neighbor who drove the tractor while Tony and I did the planting. And this is us and the neighbor's son getting ready to set everything out. I guess I should back up a little bit too, because these peppers, we were deciding on what to grow back when we were preparing, and Tony's family had grown bell peppers in the past and kind of run them around urban areas. Just before Appalachian Harvest was around, they would load up a truck and drive them to restaurants, and they did bell peppers. And then when we had Tom come, he also suggested those Carmen peppers that he spoke of earlier, the Italian peppers, and we also grew a yellow tomato. So with these three crops, we pretty much said, you know, we want to do 1/3 of an acre of each, and since we're so small, we fit into their needs. And it also helped us. It was actually a fortunate mistake that the picking of these products, the tomatoes started coming in first, and we were picking hard on them. We had learned how they wanted them picked too, which is what they were helpful with. We needed to pick them a little on the greener side than we were used to, which took us a while to get. And then the green peppers started coming in kind of as the tomatoes were phasing out. And then the Carmen peppers just absolutely started to rock. They're really amazing product. So here's a picture of the full field. It's 1 acre, like I said. The tomatoes are here. Carmen peppers were in the middle, and the bell peppers were at the far end. We had sown buckwheat in the rows to try to keep the weeds down, because there still was a lot of cutting of the weeds here. We learned from Max Stone, who came to do our inspection, that actually rye would have been a better option here in our rows. We did mow this down as things were growing before we started picking, but we do have big thistle problems, so we had to cut those weeds out. This is upper garden, which is a 1/4 acre, and this is kind of what we consider more of our farmers market garden. So this allowed us still the freedom of deciding what we wanted to grow and going to market, and having that more direct connection to the community with our food. The packing house does kind of distance you from the process, so this was our way that we could connect into farmers markets, and also through the plants that we sold out of the greenhouse. This is kind of the field grown from the other end. And then I also wanted to share that Appalachian Harvest is about 1.5 hours away from us. And they provided us this cooler, which is this cool bot you see here, like a lot of farms have, with the air conditioning unit. So we were able to fill this cooler as a drop spot, and the truck would come and pick it up and then take it to the packing house for us. So that saved us. I don't think we would have been able to make nearly as much money had this cooler not been available. We driving 3 hours to deliver anywhere from 20 cases on some days to 100 in some cases on other days. Even with 100 cases, it probably wouldn't have been very cost effective. You see the tomato boxes here we have covered, and then these are bell peppers you see here, and the Carmen peppers we sold in 10-pound boxes. And that is the end of my presentation.
All right, thank you. It's definitely important to hear your perspective, and I'm glad you were able to make it. Some technical difficulties that we surmounted. Fantastic, thank you so much. Let me now introduce Alan. Alan Moore is the Director of Distribution for the local food hub, also in Virginia. Alan is the a founding member of Local Food Hub and brings considerable experience in promoting and strengthening the business components of local food systems. Born and raised in Tidewater, Virginia, Alan and his young family have deep roots in Central Virginia. After graduating from UVA, he served as the Director of Operations for Jefferson Vineyards. He then moved to Charleston, South Carolina, and attended graduate school, after which he helped found and served as the Sustainable Agriculture Program Director for Low Country Local First, a nonprofit organization working to revitalize the agricultural economy, environment, and community in South Carolina. He has experience in both nonprofit and for-profit organizations, as well as working with farmers, businesses, community organizations, and state agencies. He understands the many pressures faced by our local growers and has expertise in cultivating new markets for local foods. Alan, welcome.
Thank you. Looks like I have a presentation now. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Abby. Thanks for all the folks who are virtually joining us today. And Tom and Tamara, it's great to sort of talk to you guys via the phone. Anyways, as Jeff mentioned, see if I can go. Okay, sorry. Well, next slide, please. There we go. As Jeff mentioned, my name's Alan Moore. I'm the Director of Distribution for the Local Food Hub. We're based in Central Virginia out of Charlottesville. Next. Our mission is to strengthen and secure the future of a healthy regional food supply by providing concrete services that support the local economy and promote the stewardship of the land. I figured, sort of like Tom did, I would start with a little bit of a history of our organization and kind of evolve into how we got to our production planning system. Let me see if I can get this to advance. There we go. So who are we? The Local Food Hub is a nonprofit organization. We're a 501c3 organization. We were started in Charlottesville in 2009. Currently, we have 6 full-time staff members, 6 part-time hourly employees. We operate 2 offices. One is based out of our warehouse, which is also our distribution center. And we also manage a 75-acre certified organic farm, of which we have a portion under production that we use for a lot of different purposes, but we have other office down there. And we really work through both offices to connect family farms to food grown within the region. So why did we get started? We got started in 2009 because there was a lot of outcry, or at least conversation, from our grower community about a lack of distribution options. A lot of folks were growing similar products, trying to access the same markets at farmers markets or direct to a handful of restaurants and retailers in the community who wanted product. In addition, they also lacked a lot of the accounting, the marketing, the continuing education, and sort of the outreach and communication that they needed to both grow the product as well as distribute it. On the other end of the table, there are a lot of institutional buyers and larger sort of broadline distributors who were very interested in buying local food, but they lacked a lot of the logistics. They lacked the communication with the growers, the consistency, the quality, the pack standards, and almost most importantly, beyond that, they lacked the insurance and the liability insurance and accounting information that most growers need to carry to access larger markets. So our approach, we sort of take a 3-pronged approach, or many-pronged approach in a lot of ways. We run a distribution center where we aggregate the food. We bring it together and coordinate with a large variety of different buyers to move the product from farm to table. As I mentioned earlier, we also run our educational farm. We use that to host a series of workshops, community events. We grow it as a production facility. We also use our greenhouse there to grow a variety of plant starts, which we give out to our partner producers, and use it to develop a series of enterprise budgets, which we can work to help our existing growers plan around. And in addition, through both locations, we do a lot of work on the farm-to-school effort. We host a series of pop-up markets with the Boys and Girls Club in the community. We donate a lot of food to our community food banks, both from our farm and from the warehouse. And we've developed a partnership with with the IRC, which is a refugee organization in our community, to help gain access to new workers and help those workers gain access to land. So for this part, I'll focus mostly on our distribution. We run about a 3,100 square foot refrigerated warehouse. In there we have 4 different zones, including a large walk-in freezer. I run right now 2 trucks, and we're bringing on a third most likely. 2 are refrigerated, 1 is a refrigerated Sprinter van. Currently, we partner with about just over 80, in running the numbers from last year, growers throughout Virginia. The vast majority are within about a 20 or 30-mile radius of Charlottesville, but we really work from folks from about Richmond, which is about 60 or 70 miles east of Charlottesville, and then throughout the Shenandoah Valley. And we work with them to basically bring the product together, aggregate it, and move it back out. And we buy the produce outright from our growers and pay them in net 15. And currently with our buyers, we work with a huge variety of different folks, everyone from a small restaurant in downtown Charlottesville to broadline distributors to large retailers. We work with 5 different school districts, so a total of about 50 public schools, and a lot of sort of the in-between. What we provide is sort of what they've asked: the one number to call for purchasing and delivery, sales assistance, and marketing. So they can really drive home to their clients and their customers that they're sourcing local food. We keep that traceability intact and the name of the farm on every box that goes out of our warehouse. This slide kind of gives you an idea of growth that we've seen over the last couple years. It's not necessarily a reflection of any successes other than we're kind of learning a little bit more what to do. And because we've seen a lot of growth, we've learned over the last few years how important production planning is and how important it is to get and know that we have food in place that we can move to our buyers. So like I said, managing for growth is extremely important. For those of you out there who are new or managing a food hub, it's really important to have that plan in place, especially as you get going, so that you have the proper staff, that you have the proper infrastructure, that you have your inventory management system in place, and all the other things that you kind of don't really think about until you get going. Planning also enables you to build markets, as I'm sure many of you know out there. It's not helpful to have a crop for 1 week and then have it be out for a month and then have it come back in. It's really hard to build a consistent staff or consistent a buyer community out there when you can't guarantee having the product. Additionally, it allows you to plan for season extension. So what we found is there's always a huge demand for product this time of year, so early in the season and late in the season, and sort of capitalizing on that allows you to get the best product. And sort of as Tom mentioned, it also reduces those periods of glut where you've got a warehouse full of squash and you're moving it for not what you kind of want to move it for. And the other opportunity out there through planning is it enables you to work one-on-one with growers to really develop and cultivate trial crops, crops that you don't necessarily have an established market for, but you can work directly with a handful of buyers to really promote and support the product and kind of get it out there and really see how it's going and developing really good and strong budgets around it so you can kind of know what it costs you to grow it and therefore kind of, especially on those products, where you need to be price-wise. I got a question here that says, what percentage of our sales goes directly back to the growers? We buy at a fixed price from all of our growers, and we have a service charge that we charge, which is between 15 to 25% that we add for the service of aggregating and distributing it. So I guess we get about 80 to 85 cents of every dollar that we buy goes back to the grower. We began our planning process. We opened in July of 2009, which was way too late to do any planning. So we found that we really began our planning process in 2010, that winter through 2009, 2010. We hosted a series of meetings with our key buyers to establish sort of their volume needs, their purchasing plan with them. This was to some degree challenging because a lot of our growers were buyers were restaurants, small retailers, et cetera, so they didn't really have fixed numbers for us. So we also did a lot of work looking back at our sales, looking back at sort of missed opportunities, our potential for growth, and put together, much like Tom showed, a big sort of master matrix or spreadsheet of a demand that we needed. We then started working with Anthony Flacavento from ASD to develop a sort of our planning process, which we modeled a lot of after they did how they did it, which was sort of converting those box needs into plantings and row feet of different products. And then every year we also host an annual partner-producer meeting where we get together with all of our growers and organize it and sit down and chat and see how the season went. In that process, we also put together the bidding process where we would ask folks to grow a variety of different products for us. And we found personally that that process was very challenging for us. Some of the challenges we faced were that not all of our growers were of the same size, skill, desire to grow different products for us. Some were very soft-spoken. Some didn't really speak out. Some felt intimidated by the process. Additionally, being a very new organization, we didn't really have a long track record with our growers of knowing that we were going to succeed and that we were going to be here, and the same with our buyers. And additionally, we really leaned on Anthony's expertise to sort of convert these numbers into plantings, but none of us were really exactly growers on staff. We had a lot of experience with farming and with farmers, but not sort of that transition, and I didn't feel necessarily that it was the most effective way to communicate exactly with our growers. So we kind of learned through that process and moved through the next year into our planning and how we manage planning moving forward. So what I found is that planning is sort of an evolving process. We adjusted our planning process moving into the next year away from the group planning and into individual meetings. We still built our sales matrix the same way, adding a significant amount for potential growth, talking to key buyers, and sort of building a plan around that. The other thing that we found, being a very new organization, is that we didn't know exactly everything that we should carry, and more importantly, we didn't know everything that maybe we shouldn't carry. So we really continued to refine our product offerings, sort of what we would buy and what didn't work well for us. And this was really built on demand from our customers, what really grew well in this region and that our growers really like to buy, and our growers, really like to grow. And then what was also supported by our infrastructure. And one of the things we found is we used to bring in a lot of head lettuce and cooking greens, and we found that with our big coolers, it just sucked the moisture out of them faster than we could move them. So we really found that overall, it wasn't we really needed to carry products that worked well for us and that worked well for our customers, and that just kind of takes time and involves in direct conversations with our buyers. The other thing that we've done over the years is kind of refine our product carrying into a variety of different categories of which we can talk to our growers on different levels. So some of our growers are very small, and most of their product goes into 3 or 4 farmers markets or a CSA they may go to, but they may grow a significant amount of, say, a mixed cherry tomato or a specific type of, say, yellow snap bean or something like that. So what we developed is a series of signature crops that we can really develop a marketing plan around and work with a handful of growers to grow that one product specifically for us. We have a lot of our core products, our market products that we sell, which I consider things like summer squash, green bell peppers, potatoes, slicing tomatoes, things that come in volumes throughout the year and can go out to a large variety of different customers. We have a lot less control necessarily on the exact price that we can give out to our growers on that, but those are one of the significant crops that we really plan around because we move a lot of volume of those. And then we have development crops or trial products, which can be things that we've had success in or seen demand from and haven't had a lot of supply of. And so we really then target specific growers to grow those for us. And then opportunities are ones that we're out there where we're always looking for folks who buy all that we could carry. And we sit down with our growers and put together a plan if they have any one of those for them. And rather than buy we really basically set up an agreement with them to buy a specific number of boxes per week from them throughout the season, and then spread that across our grower base with, as Tom mentioned also, there's always a certain overage that you kind of have to estimate in there on sort of what you may lose in a season if there's a crop failure, so you have to have some backup plans there. So one of the things that I've sort of learned over the years is that production planning isn't something, at least for us, that is a one-and-done event. It's a year-round effort. We put together a plan with our growers, but there's a lot of time that goes in that throughout the year to track product, to know how it's doing in the field, to communicate that to our buyers, and to make sure that we have the product available that we really want. We're always trying to, we're now in, this will be my 4th grower meeting this year, so we're always trying to sort of improve and refine our process and our workflow to make sure that we're being as efficient as we can, that we're getting the best price for our growers that we can, and that, overall it's sort of the most sustainable system. And then what I've found really is that communication in the end is the most critical key to success. We communicate with our growers mostly through phone calls. Farm visits, we share information via our website, via email, and then being very clear and consistent in the guidelines that we share with them. We love to work with our growers so that they have an idea of the price that they're going to get from the given year before, and sort of a historical view of a series of different crops. So we kind of share that information with them, what we've seen, where we project pricing to be. But we also have to be very clear with them on our crop specs, what the crops need to be, what varietals work well, how they need to be graded, how they need to be packed. We receive all of our product packed and graded at the warehouse. So we're very clear with folks how it needs to look when it comes in, what the qualities are. And it's really being very clear and strict on that enables us to keep our customers and keep the price as high as we can get it. We also share a lot of technical documents with our growers. On our farm, we do a lot of specialty crop production, and we work with our growers on the farm to put together a planning program with that, so we can share those production notes with our growers. So if we find a product that works really well, we can have a series of growers grow it. We also share food safety requirements, post-harvest recommendations, and then just in general, our receiving and operational specs. Getting all the growers in a room at one time is a challenge. Getting a grower to get to the dock in time so that you can get the product on your truck is also challenging. So setting dock times, forecasting, and knowing kind of what's coming in is always important, based around the plan that you put in place and your communication with your buyers. So for us, it's a year-round event, and a lot of work that goes into it from sort of all aspects of our organization. So that's sort of what I have in place right now. Here's all my contact info, and thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Well, thank you very much. There is a deluge of questions, so let's just dive right in. There are a couple of questions around how each of you determine the yield. So do you rely on the farmer to tell you? Do you rely on grower history, area history? How do you determine yields?
I guess I can start with that. This is Tom Peterson. It's a challenge. It continues to be a challenge, but we started off at the very beginning by consulting our cooperative extension materials. They've got crop budgets for most crops, and so we went with our local cooperative extension information, cross-checked it with other extension information and other sources on the internet, and then kind of over the years, we have refined those numbers based on our own experience with growers and what we've seen in the field. The kind of the qualifier to that is that we get to know many of our growers very well, and we can kind of predict which growers are going to meet those numbers, which will exceed them, and which are likely to not meet those numbers, and that can be an important factor in when we're kind of planning how much we can expect from any given grower.
Okay. I don't know if you want to weigh in, Alan, or there's.
I mean, as far as yield, I mean specific yield. We worked with Anthony to kind of put together a sort of a percentage yield per row feet of crop, which was I found personally challenging because some growers were more skilled than others. Some planted with using different techniques. Not all of our growers are organic. Most are. To some degree uncertified organic. However, we do work with conventional growers as well. So what I found is, as far as projections, we built sort of a need by week by product guideline, and then communicated how many boxes packed we needed, and then I shared that with our growers to kind of let them know where we needed to be as far as incoming product.
Okay.
I'll just add,
leaned on their expertise.
And I'll add just quickly to that we've changed our kind of way that we calculated that number from an acreage basis, which is most of what the information we have is, to a per plant number. So when growers bid in on certain crops, it's a number of plants rather than an acreage, because growers have different spacings and different crop widths and things of that nature. So our numbers are all based on a per plant number.
Do either of the hubs rely on contracts, or is it just growers' words that they will grow what they say they will?
We do not. No, we do not set up any official contracts with growers.
Yeah, no official contracts either. I mean, we have sort of an agreement in paper that we'll buy, kind of what we said that we're going to buy with them. And if something happens, or then we just have a pretty frank conversation where we work with them on it. Or often, to date at least, we've been starting very small. We've grown faster than we kind of anticipated. So, but we're running into the point now where yeah, we have an agreement and we buy that, but we don't have a contract written on it.
Okay. There are several questions around pricing. Do you each want to go through how you determine the price for each of your products? I mean, yeah.
I can't address that very well. This is Tom Peterson again for Appalachian Harvest. We have a marketer, Robin Robbins, is the one who's in direct contact with the buyers, and she negotiates a price and has been able to commit buyers to stick with a season-long price, which helps on our growers in terms of their planning, because the market value of crops fluctuates over the years. So she does a great job of meeting one-on-one with buyers and sitting down and setting a season-long price for the various commodities. And that does not mean that it's the same across the board. Some buyers are willing to pay a little bit more than others, but that's her job, basically, to try to get the best price for the growers that she can. And I do not know her science behind it.
Okay.
We work, it's sort of a challenging thing. I mean, to figure out exactly what the price is, we base it on market, sort of what some of our conventional aggregators are moving product for. We base it on, what I can get for it as much as anything as well. And so a lot of it is based on that, where we think we can move it, trying to find a sweet spot in there, sort of what the national and sort of regional markets are on a variety of different products. And then, for some things, a pretty frank and open communication with our growers on kind of what their cost to produce it is and kind of where we need to be to move it, and then kind of set a price based on there, and then go out and move the product.
Okay. There are many questions about how you all manage the quality of the product that comes in, and maybe Tamara can speak to this as well, and how she manages the product that goes out of her farm.
Appalachian Harvest gave us quality control, like little template paper sheets, as far as this is USDA standard, and then there's one line here, you know, a medium-sized pepper is this size, and you could put the pepper up to the piece of paper to see if it's 3.5 inches, or a large pepper is this size, and it's like, I don't know exactly off the top of my head right now, 4 inches tall and wide, and then the jumbo pepper. So they had these lines on a sheet of paper where you could actually hold the pepper to it. And what was nice about, that's a bell pepper, what's nice about the Carmen is there is no USDA standard. And with our tomatoes, they did give, you know, it has to be this certain size, and there did come a time where Robin did start having to call me or text me and say, you're sticking in small tomato, you know, you can't have golf balls in there. And we had one real, there was the 3 of us, Tony and myself, and then the neighbor helped pack, and she really was awesome on tomatoes. We kind of then put her in charge of being our tomato grader, because we were trying to make money. And we'd give her the standard, and you know, we might let something slide, and she was like, no, this is what it needs to be. And you know, things like spots, it's I guess 10% is a basic rule. So we got trained, and those papers were helpful to us.
Yeah, I mean, the templates are an important part of it. We also did quality control meetings, which are mandatory for all growers, and so they come and learn those specifications firsthand. This actually was a new, this past year was a new approach for us, in which we had all of the producers grading and boxing their own produce. In the past, we had done a lot of that activity in our packing house. And it was, you know, a bit of a nerve-wracking change, because all of a sudden we don't have the same level of control over what goes into the boxes, but it really worked out fantastically over the course of the year. So growers are trained in what the grading standards are, and then our packing house crew will inspect a certain percentage of the boxes just to make sure that the growers are meeting those standards.
Tom, do you make those templates available to the to other hubs, or are they?
We certainly could. I mean, they're just they're Word files, probably Word document files that Robin has on her computer. I'm sure we could spread them.
A lot of them you can find through USDA as well.
Okay,
and
great.
So, sorry to jump in. We've done some of the similar stuff. We actually based a lot of our quality and sort of crop specifications around y'all's, Tom, and put together sort of a master list of, you know, this is the case size, this is the, you know, how clean it needs to be, you know, no blossoms on the end of the summer squash, and, you know, this size and shape, washed clean, you know, wiped clean, etc. So a lot of that's available via the USDA as well.
Correct.
So that's where a lot of what our at least specs are based around.
Great. All right, Tom, if you do want to share it, we'd be happy to post it next to this webinar. There are questions sort of on both sides of this issue. I'm going to read both of these questions. How much extra product over what was requested is usually required to fill customers' needs? And in a sense, on the other side, if you have 2 growers and each supplies you, say, with 60 boxes of tomatoes, but that week you only are able to sell 100. How do you deal with that? So overage and underage.
Overage and underage. Well, that, I mean, so to, I mean, if a buyer wants 60 boxes of peppers, then if we have them in the packing house, we ship 60 boxes of peppers, and that's just, I mean, we don't ship extra peppers. But if we have extra on hand, then that is the marketer's responsibility to find homes for those overages. And the same way, if we're not going to meet our needs for any particular buyer, then that gets reflected in what is shipped. I mean, we ship what we have or we ship what we need, and that all boils down to communication. And so there's several layers. My responsibility is to be out on the farms, making sure growers have crops that are going to meet the needs of what we have, and if they don't, I need to get that information to Robin as quickly as she can so that she's not dropping bombs on the buyers on a short notice. Does that answer the question? The other part of it is that we've developed a kind of a side program called Healthy Families, Family Farms, which is a program that collects and looks for local donations from churches and other individuals, and creates a fund of money that we can buy seconds and we can buy overages of produce at a lower but nice price for the growers that then is donated to the food banks in the area. So we can, if we've got a lot of extra, or if we've got stuff that doesn't meet the quality demands of the wholesale buyers, then we can still cut a check to the growers for that produce, and then that gets donated to local food banks to be distributed to families in need. And that's been a great addition.
It was nice for us to be able to make a little bit of money on stuff that wasn't grocery store USDA standard quality. So it wasn't total trash. We were able to send it off to food banks and get paid for some of those, what would have been a loss otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
We handle sort of overage and underage a lot the same way. I mean, we kind of know, from week to week and month to month what we need by the week on certain products, and if we're going to be under that, or, a huge storm blows through and the grower loses power, or pours down raining and they can't get out and harvest, then it's sort of one of those things we just have to communicate as quickly as we know to the buyers that we're going to be short. And if we're going to be long on product, then I'm pretty much on the phone calling folks to see what I can push in a variety of different areas, or get folks to take a couple more boxes, et cetera. So basically try and move it. And then whatever, if we're long significantly or can't move a product, we can donate it. We also raise money in the community at large to help support donations programs, so that the food doesn't go to waste. We'll move it to the food bank, and they can get it out to folks in need, basically.
That's great. There's a vegetable grower on here who's concerned that production planning means that participating farms are likely to be less diversified. Is that the case?
I mean, it could be. I mean, again, it's still the farmer's responsibility to maintain that diversity on their farms. And we do encourage, I mean, we have a fairly wide range of crops at Appalachian Harvest that we offer, and we encourage growers to not put their eggs all in one basket. It's for their well-being and for our well-being. And then a lot of our growers, like Tamara mentioned as well, have other markets as well, restaurants, farmers markets, private markets, and so this is just maybe one part of what they're doing.
For us, it was a management decision. That 1 acre that we had, we wanted to put it in fewer numbers of crops for management reasons. You don't have to tend 50 foot of this and 50 foot of that. We tend 1,000 or 10,000 row foot of tomatoes, 10,000 row foot of peppers. So it's easier management style instead of kind of being all, for us, for being all over the place on an acre, I felt like we would have needed a lot more hands and a lot more markets. This was, yeah, the 1 acre was let's roll it production style. It was a management decision.
And it's hard, I would imagine, for you to work with the folks at ASD if you're only going to have a couple boxes of this and a couple boxes of that, of 20 different things, as opposed to being a consistent producer for them, and then grow for your other markets on a different portion, basically. Right. Sort of what I've seen with our producers is that, we make sure that we're not, obviously, their only outlet for moving product. And we work, with a lot of different types of growers who grow a lot of different products, and some may move only one product through us, but they may grow, I don't know how many different varieties of product on their farm. So sort of outside of their arrangement with us, they do and grow a lot of different things. So I don't necessarily see it in this region as decreasing diversity.
Well, and I think
go ahead.
I was going to say, you are going to have growers that just want to grow one thing, too. Like, we put that 1 acre into 3 things, but we could have just as much made a decision, that we wanted to streamline one product and take the risk of it being all in that one basket. So there are going to be growers that are just by nature, their own preference, going to want to grow one thing, whether they're growing it for a packing house or a farmer's market or something.
And it's a requirement of the USDA National Organic Program that each grower, as a part of their application, as a part of their farm plan, demonstrates what they're doing to rotate their crops, their crop rotation plan, and if someone just grows tomatoes year after year after year on a piece of land, that's going to be a red flag to the certifier. So some of those things get addressed that way, but certainly we are not in a part of the world where anybody can grow 1,000 acres of something, because just fields are broken up and they're small and they're spread out, and it kind of encourages diversity by necessity to some degree.
Mm-hmm. How do you, well, there's a question here that says, wouldn't everyone want to just grow the highest margin products?
Sure. Yeah. Well, to some degree that's true. Everyone, but, see, here's the truth of it is that the highest margin products are also the highest labor products. And so depending on what your plan is and what your availability to labor and your experience is, a lot of folks would rather just plant out a bunch of butternut squash and not have to worry about all the management stuff, even though they're not going to get the yield or the return per acre, but their input costs are much lower in terms of labor, in terms of materials, in terms of stringing and posts and all that stuff. And so there's a balance between the skills and the needs of the growers and the needs of Appalachian Harvest as well, because if everyone, the green peppers, everyone kind of signs up for those quickly, and when we get to the point where we don't want to accept any more green pepper growers, people say, I want to grow green peppers. I say, I'm sorry, we're full on green peppers. You're going to have to find another crop, and if you want to be, if you want to get in on the list. And so there's a little bit of give and take on both sides, but everybody would like to get as much as they possibly could for their product, but there are a lot of factors that determine what you grow.
And that was actually us. Tony wanted to grow green peppers, is what his family had grown, and Tom actually talked us into diversifying into beyond just green peppers.
Success.
Fantastic. You mentioned trial crops. Does the hub share any of the risk on the trial crops?
We'll commit to buy them to some degree, depending on what they are. Also, we grow a lot for these crops that we're trying to see how they grow in the region, what the market can be for them, or what varietals do really well. We have a large greenhouse on our farm that is much bigger than we need for what we grow on the farm, and so in order to, since we turn it on and heat it up in the early spring, we go ahead and put out a lot of starts that we then give out to our partner producers so that they can put them in the ground and kind of keep notes on how they grow for us. And then we really work also to, I would say a trial product or crop would be something at a pretty small scale that we market to a handful of growers, buyers, to kind of really build a plan around it to see, how does this work? What's the best pack size to really attract attention at a retailer or, through a series of restaurants? What's the best pricing structure for us to work under? And, how much do you think we can move? And then kind of build it from year to year to move it sort of up the ladder as far as how much of it we can move at any given time. If that makes sense, as far as, risk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, we are out of time. There are a lot more questions. Would you all be willing to take a few more questions?
Yes, I'm
Sure.
happy to
Sure.
do that.
All right, thanks. There are several questions about when you let's see, when the process, the food, the production planning process starts, how late in the season you let new growers in, and there's also a question about do you tend to have a bias for the more experienced farmers that you feel like you can rely on a little bit more to have a little bit more say in their product choice?
That's a lot of stuff. This is Tom.
Yeah.
We start the process as early as possible. Robin is already starting to work with buyers and get numbers lined up for the next season while we're still producing in the late summer and fall. Ideally, we would have our first meeting in terms of presenting the demand information before the new year. In December would be a great time. It doesn't always happen. But the earlier the better, because then it gives growers time to purchase seeds and get their, if they're starting, especially like a pepper that has to get started fairly early in the season, they need to be ready to do that. So the earlier we can get that started, the better. I would say kind of on a realistic basic, we do have, some bias in terms of our growers. There are certain growers that we know are going to be very reliable and very do a nice job with what they do, and we kind of probably weigh them a little heavier in terms of our confidence in terms of than other growers. There are certainly some that we know. There's some growers that have been involved with us for years and have rarely produced anything, but they keep signing on, and we keep working with them, and we know not to expect a lot from those growers, but it's still, they see a value in it, and we see a potential value in that continued relationship. So nobody gets like first shot at signing up, but there are some biases, I'm sure. Does that answer everything?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We're similar in a lot of ways, and I guess sort of how we rely on folks who approach us. When we first started, we thought we'll work with 10 growers in the first year and kind of grow from there. And by the end of our first year, we were working with 30 growers. But not every grower delivers to us in any real volume or in every season. Folks grow and provide us a variety of different volumes and products throughout the season. So as far as recruiting new folks, I think as far as how much we, work we put into cultivating the product that's coming to us from them is based to some degree on, as you said, Tom, kind of our belief that it's going to bring product in rather than someone who is just calling us because they happen to have a bumper of peppers that they want to move to us. And then as far as, when we would say not bring folks in, we're kind of just working through some of that now. We can, we don't want folks to not work with us, but at the same time, if they have this, if they come to us in mid-season and they only have products that we've already sort of committed to folks to buy, we're kind of in a position where we have to say, sorry, we've already got commitments to folks to move that product. But let's, continue a discussion with you, kind of get to know you a little bit, have our farm manager go out to the farm and work to sort of develop a relationship, see what they're doing, and see if they have other products as well that we could either bring in or that we have an opportunity to move, or that we could cultivate for the next season. And yeah, this is the time of year that really it all happens between now and earlier than now and over the next year, when folks are
where that was going.
buying seeds and putting together their plans. So, we've hosted all of our meetings with the buyers already, or I have, and then at least most of them anyways, and then put together a plan of sort of where we need to be with our growers, and I've been hosting those meetings, and then sort of putting together that whole spectrum of need, really, and going forward.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's end on this one. Tanya asks, have some producers scaled up in order to work with you? And if so, have they found the percentage that they pay for your services is equal to or less than what it cost them to sell direct? So this is this big scale-up question.
I would say that the majority of folks who grow in any volume, real volume for us, have and do grow more now than maybe they did before. I don't have a specific answer. We do do a lot of work to put out surveys to both our producers and our buyers at the end of every year to kind of gauge where our opportunities are, how we did, and sort of where we need to go in the following year. So the results from those generally have been fairly good. As far as the percentage more that they pay, I mean, they don't pay anything to work with us. We buy the product from them and often buy at a better price than they would get moving the equivalent volume through other channels, unless they're selling, sort of piecemeal at markets or direct to restaurants or retailers. But then I guess it's just for that individual business to decide, like, how much they value their time and how much they value, how much it costs them to go and deliver and take, a $100 order here and a $200 order there and 5 boxes here and 5 boxes there, as opposed to moving it more in volume and still getting a pretty good price.
That's what Tony had done, was load a truck and move 5 boxes here, 5 boxes there, and I kind of did scale up. But we started a new venture, the two of us together. I had been growing half-acre and selling direct markets in a small greenhouse. And when Tony said, well, we're going to run around to restaurants, I pretty much said, I don't want to do that. I would rather take everything to one cooler, to one place, and have it done. We're going to be busy come July, August. Running around is not something else I want to do. Appalachian Harvest, they take 20% of whatever the purchase price is from the grocery store. And I feel like it was totally reasonable for me to be able to not worry about calling anybody or driving it all over the place, or, we bought our boxes from them. I didn't have to spend, we also started late in the season. In February, I didn't have to try to source boxes at a good price. I didn't have to do stickers, these sorts of things. So I think the service that they provide was worth the 20%. And us being certified organic, we felt like we were still getting a good price for a product moving that kind of quantity. I just didn't want to think about trying to do that ourselves without help. We would not have scaled up to the acre without somebody like Appalachian Harvest in our region.
Tom, I don't mean to cut you off, but I think that's a beautiful place to stop.
I agree.
All right. Well, thank you to Tom and to Tamara and to Alan. You can see there's no magic bullet in production planning. It's a very complicated process, but it is an effective tool at maximizing efficiency and reducing financial risk. are two critical issues in small business, and I'm speaking here both of the producers' businesses and the food hubs themselves. This webinar is being recorded and will be archived on our site along with the 40+ other webinars we've done in the past. Feel free to send others who you think would have liked to have heard this panel, and take some professional development time yourself and dig through our excellent archives or review this one. Visit ngfn.org/webinars. This webinar will be up within a few business days. Our webinars are organized into topics. If you look in the left-hand navigation area, dig into whatever interests you. We offer NGFN webinars on the third Thursday of each month at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Sign-up links are always at ngfn.org/webinars, and I wanted to make you aware of a new opportunity. The NGFN webinar series has been running for over 3 years, presenting top-quality learning opportunities for all members of the food value chain, and we are now able to accept donations to help support future high-quality presentations. Did you get some value out of this presentation? Do you think it was worth $25 or even $10? Would you like to support these learning opportunities for a student or a fledgling nonprofit? Larger donations support a whole community's education, so please visit our donation site up there, bit.ly/donate-NGFN, and help support local good food efforts across the nation. Our next webinar is on February 5th, and for those still paying attention, you've noticed that's not a third Thursday, it's a first Tuesday. The NGFN Food Hub collaboration is collecting data from food hubs in 2 different ways for 2 very different purposes. Come to this short webinar to understand how, if you are a food hub, participating in one or more of these studies will help your profitability and inform funders, investors, and policymakers about the critical work you do. And the third Thursday of February, we'll be exploring the rapidly moving world of food safety. Some talk about that here, including an introduction to the group gap pilots the Wallace Center National Good Food Network is working on with USDA. You can let us know in the post-webinar survey if you'd like to be automatically registered for either or both of those webinars. I want to let you know about 3 other Wallace Center sites. Foodhub.info is a food hub of information, research, case studies, a map of many of the food hubs across the country. The NGFN Food Hub collaboration recently chose 9 food hubs across the country to work closely with and document their stories. Local Food Hub is one of them. Read about our study hubs on our site. There are even links to TA providers with experience in aggregation and distribution. If you are a TA provider or consultant on this call, you should take some time and create or update your profile on ngfn.org. This is becoming an established place for those in need of assistance to find their help, so you want to be listed there. The NGFN Food Hub collaboration is building a community of practice of Food Hub managers and staff, and also Food Hub supporters. We have a newsletter about every other month, TA and networking opportunities, and more. In the post-webinar survey, indicate to us if you'd like more information about this Food Hub community of practice. HuFed.org is our site for the Healthy Urban Food Enterprise Development Center run by the Wallace Center. This program and the website is focused on increasing access to food to underserved communities using market-based solutions. On the site, you'll find a description of the initiative, grantee profiles and photos, and a library of some of the best food access resources. If you have a resource you'd like to share, please let us know. And foodshedguide.org is our site for producers wanting to adapt to the changing food business landscape. We have instructive text, and case studies with an emphasis on how to have a viable business in a food value chain. Learn about, for instance, factors to consider when deciding on a legal status, such as an LLC or C Corp. Visit foodshedguide.org for more. You can find the NGFN on YouTube, on Twitter, and on our website, ngfn.org. The Wallace Center is now also on Facebook. Come like us. Search for Wallace Center at Winrock International. Again, if you haven't already, sign up for our email updates. There's a link on the ngfn.org homepage, or just let us know in the post-webinar survey. And we'll sign you up. Please contact us at any time. Email address is contact@ngfn.org. The NGFN would like to thank you for your time today. Once again, let me encourage you to fill out the survey that will open in your web browser in just a moment. Thank you. This concludes the webinar.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
The organizer has ended the session, and this